Yes, hello everyone and welcome along to the weekend review here on Turfcast. Burnley Football Club and Leeds United, it's official, it's confirmed. They will both play their football in the Premier League next season. Sheffield United, unfortunately for them, have been resigned to the playoffs after losing at Turf Moor. And obviously the Burnley victory ensured that Burnley will play in the Premier League next season, and it also ensured that Leeds will play in the Premier League next season after their 6-0 demolition job of Stoke City at Ellen Road earlier that day. But yes, a great weekend for Burnley fans, a great weekend for Leeds fans as well. Not so much for Sheffield United fans. And obviously now that Sheffield United have dropped out of the top two race, we will now be focusing going forward after this weekend review, going forward on the race for the title between Burnley and Leeds. Is anybody that bothered? I am now. But I've said for ages that I wasn't that bothered. I just wanted to get up. But now we are up. Yes, I am bothered. I won't lose any sleep over it if we don't win the title. But I would like to win it again. I've seen Burnley win it twice already. I would like a hat-trick. Some fans will never get to see that. And it'd be great to see Burnley win it for a third time. Obviously, a lot of Leeds fans watching this will, obviously be fully aware. In fact, you should all be aware that you won it the last time, under Bielsa. So Leeds fans have seen it as well. So I guess both sets of fans aren't as bothered as what maybe Blades fans would have been if they were in the fight, because they haven't, as far as I'm aware, forgive me if I'm wrong, haven't won it over the last 15, 20 years off the top of my head. But yeah, Blades are going to be in the playoffs, unfortunately for them, but I do think they win the playoffs. But we'll get onto that later on. What we are going to do first of all is take a look at that league table. Look at that. How beautiful does that look? Let's just zoom in a little bit so you guys can see it. And look at them arrows next to Leeds and Burnley. Qualified for the Premier League. Qualified for the Premier League. I absolutely will take that. Of course, we will, both Burnley fans and Leeds fans, over the moon to get the job done with 2 games to spare, which means now we can have a relaxed couple of game weeks. The next 2 game weeks are just going to be relaxed. Yes, like I've said already, we would like to go and get the title. But if Burnley lose at QPR at the weekend, I won't care. I won't care. We're in the Premier League. That's all that matters. But yeah, let's just have a closer look at that league table. Of course, it is as you were for the top 2 now, other than being qualified for the Premier League next season. But both still locked on points. Both won at the weekend. Leeds obviously won a lot more convincingly. So now that the pendulum swings further in Leeds' favour for the league title, because, I think the goal difference for Leeds was 9. Like they had a 9 better goal difference, and over 3 games, it wouldn't have been beyond the realms. It would have been unlikely, I fully admit that, but it wouldn't have been beyond the realms of possibility to have a 9-goal swing if Leeds, only winning 1-0 and Burnley win 4-0 for a few, you know what I mean? Again, like I said, it's unlikely for that reason because Burnley don't win 4-0 very often. I respect that. But Leeds absolutely demolishing Stoke 6-0 means that goal difference is locked at 14 for Leeds now. So there's not going to be a 14-goal swing in 2 games. So Burnley, if they are to win the league title, need Leeds to drop points. And if they play like they did against Stoke, they're probably not going to drop points, unfortunately, for Burnley. But I'm sure a lot of Leeds fans will be watching this disagreeing and thinking that's not unfortunate. That's a great thing. But yes, that league table does look absolutely beautiful. Burnley and Leeds will be in the Premier League next season. Get in there, Clarets. So what we like to do here on the weekend review is we look back at the games and we have a look at what the managers were saying and what the fans were saying on YouTube and things like that. So we will look at the Leeds game. We'll have a look at their demolition of Stoke City. And we will, of course, look at Burnley against Sheffield United. We'll hear what Scott Park had to say. We'll hear what Chris Wilder had to say. And we'll hear what Jimmy from the Blades Ramble had to say after the defeat, which condemned the Blades to the playoffs. But we will start at Ellen Road. And if you are new here, I was having a look at my analytics and things like that the other day. There's like 55% of the people that are watching this channel over the last 28 days are not subscribed. So please make sure you hit that subscribe button. And of course, if you are already subscribed, please make sure you hit that like button because it really does help with the algorithm. But like I said, we'll start with Leeds United and their demolition of Stoke City. And what I like to do in this show is have a look at the stats and sort of like have a look at the balance of play and see how the game went. We know. You look at that scoreline, man. This is where Leeds sort of like have that edge. They batter teams, and Burnley have battered a couple of teams this year, but Leeds have done this so often and they just absolutely blew Stoke away. And I will caveat that by saying Stoke look awful. But what I think the problem with Stoke was, other than just being god-awful, was that they probably expected it to be a cagey affair at Elland Road, because Leeds obviously knew that a win here would see them all but in the Premier League next season. They just needed Burnley to beat Sheffield United, which of course we did. But even if Sheffield United had won that match, Leeds would have qualified for the Premier League anyway. So this win would have cemented them in the Premier League just without the confirmation. So I think Stoke went into this game probably expecting a nervous Leeds, a nervous crowd, and it to be, a cagey opening 10, 15, 20 minutes. But it was anything but, of course it was. Leeds United were 3-0 up by the 20th minute, 4-0 up by the 26th minute. And obviously I was watching this with claret-tinted glasses on. I wasn't wanting Leeds to lose as such, because Leeds weren't Burnley's concern at this stage anymore. The concern was Sheffield United. But, it would have been nice to see a 1-1 or something like that, or a 1-0 to Stoke, so we can then get the title. But Leeds were just superb, and I'll be honest with you, I turned it off at 3-0, not in anger or anything like that, just because I'm like, well, the game's won, so let's just get upstairs and get ready for the match, because of course Burnley were playing later that day. But you don't need me to look at the stats and stuff to make it obvious that Leeds United were the better side and demolished Stoke. But I'll do it anyway, because that's what we do here on the show. 3.4 XG to 0.57. I'm surprised Stokes is that high, if I'm being honest with you. That's my main takeaway from that, is that Leeds probably should have been higher, just based on what I saw. And I think Stoke should have been lower. Ball possession, 67% to 33. Stoke just didn't have a sniff, did they? 18 shots to Stoke's 5. 11 shots on target to Stoke's 1. 8 big chances to Stoke's 1. That's what I mean. 8 big chances. Maybe you're looking at that game, Leeds fans are thinking it should have been more. And corner kicks 5-1 as well. And look at them passes as well. 643 completed passes, 716 attempted to Stoke City's 276 and 354. It just shows the absolute dominance of Leeds United in that game. And, fair play to Leeds. Like I said, I do feel like Leeds get more credit than Burnley, despite us being locked on points, just because it probably is easier on the eye. And I get that. Obviously, I watched Burnley under Vincent Kompany. That was my favourite ever season following Burnley, because we just went to teams, and when teams came to the turf, we just battered everybody. We blew teams away like Leeds did to Stoke. But Burnley and Leeds are level on points, and I do feel like Burnley deserve a bit more credit, but I completely get people don't like the Burnley style, and that's fine. But as it stands, we're level on points, and it's just as effective. But yeah, Leeds were sensational. Nothing to take away from Leeds. They were absolutely sensational. They deserved to win that match. They were fantastic. And yes, it set up the game brilliantly for the Elland Road fans. The fans at Elland Road, sorry. The later game against Burnley, Sheffield United. And it was good to see, like, Burnley Leeds, there's no like main rivalry between Burnley and Leeds. But obviously, we always have like the Yorkshire, Lancashire sort of like rivalry, and you do get a few fans on either side that do hate the other club. Obviously, I worked in Leeds for 6-7 years, and the majority of Leeds fans don't really care too much about Burnley. And I feel like the majority of Burnley fans don't really care too much about Leeds. But it was good to see the Burnley and the Leeds fans coming together and sort of like celebrating promotion and watching, and Leeds fans watching the Burnley game at the Peacock. Is it still called the Peacock, that pub across the road? At the Peacock, watching it, celebrating Josh Brownell's penalty. It was good to see. And Tom of the Turfcast channel, who sends in the fan reactions, even went to Elland Road when Burnley won, because he lives in Leeds, to celebrate in his Burnley top. And he said he did get a bit of grief, but he said the majority of stuff was positive, and people were shouting, "Come on, Burnley," at him. So yeah, it was good to see the two sets of fans sort of like come together in a way. But I'm sure that'll stop at the weekend when both teams are going for the championship title. As you can imagine, Daniel Farke, well, I've not even watched this yet, so I don't know why I'm leading into it like I know what Daniel Farke is going to say. But I imagine Daniel Farke was very happy with the Leeds United performance against Stoke City at the weekend. Let's have a look at what he said after Leeds United demolished Stoke City 6-0 at the weekend. It's only 3 minutes 38, but again, I won't watch it all. We'll watch the first minute, maybe 2 minutes, get a view on what he has to say and a vibe, and then we'll quickly discuss
the manager is smiling, or will be shortly when we ask him about what he's just watched. That was really, really good, wasn't it?
Yes, I'm proud of the boys. It's not easy in this crunch time period, a bit nervous period, then to deliver performances. But we have done.
I'm just going to butt in there. He says a nervous period. Leeds did not look nervous. Leeds did not look nervous. So whatever he said to them players before the game worked superbly.
This in all of the last game days in fantastic fashion. Also today against the side was actually in red hot form. So I think third in the form table of the last 5 games, unbeaten since a while. And then, yeah, to win this game 6-0, front foot start, scored goal after goal. Another clean sheet win. If you would have stayed with the foot on the gas in the second half, we could have perhaps scored a few more, but fantastic performance. I'm proud of the lads. Also keeping in mind that this was a quick turnaround for us after pretty exhausting and energy costing away game at Oxford. Fantastic win for us, and of course, priceless 3 points, yes.
What was the message that you sent them out with today? Because whatever it was, I think they delivered it, didn't they?
Yes, just to stay in
Me and Bryn no ball
here now and concentrate on what we can influence, because the outside world takes a home win for granted because of our home form, and was more concentrated about what will happen then later on in the day. I want us to stay humble and to stay focused on the content, and to make sure that we play a proper game of football and are on it and want to win this game and are good in the details, and don't lose our head, and keep our coolness and keep our calm. And this is what the lads have delivered in fantastic fashion today, and for that I'm pretty proud of this mentality, but also this spirit. Anyhow, so we have gone through the last weeks with fantastic unity and togetherness, and everyone wanted to chip in, and I think this is crucial for us.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. But again, completely agree with the stuff that he's saying there. And what I do want to say is as well, I know Scott Parker's the same. Daniel Farke and Scott Parker, I don't feel like they're getting enough credit than what they deserve for this season. Daniel Farke should be winning the league and should be getting promoted with the squad that he's had. But there was a similar sort of thing at Leeds to Burnley. They sold big players. Farke's sort of like got the squad together and maintained the run. Yes, they recruited well, but I feel like he's made some big decisions over the season, especially the Meslier one, that have then helped Leeds kick on. And I feel like he deserves more credit. I felt like a lot of teams, not yesterday, on Easter Monday, would have been nervous. But as he said there, he's gone and spoken to the players about certain things and trying to keep them not nervous and going into such a massive game with such confidence, and obviously delivered. And obviously Leeds now in the Premier League, and I think he deserves some credit, or more credit than what he's getting, to be fair, off a lot of Leeds fans. But yeah, Daniel Farke, obviously, as expected, very happy with the performance against Stoke. Right, next up, we'll take a look at how the Leeds fans reacted to that, or of course, one particular Leeds fan, my friend Connor, from the One Leeds fan channel. And again, I've not watched this yet because, of course, I was at Turf Moor when this was streamed. I've not had a chance to go back. I presume he was very happy. He looks very happy. Look at him draped in that flag as well. But yeah, let's see how Connor reacted to Leeds' thumping of Stoke City. Look at the title of the video, by the way. Extremely emotional. He knows how to clickbait, does our Connor, but was he extremely emotional? Let's have a look.
Well, everybody. That is a statement. That is a statement. Leeds United in a pressure game, and I'm going to try come down here because I've been very, very excited for the past nearly 2.5 hours on the watch along, which I'm sure all of you enjoyed very much so. Leeds United have just dispatched of informed Stoke City 6-0. Yes, 6-0. Pressure cracks a lot of the time, and it has done with Leeds United. 2009-10, Bristol Rovers, after we beat Man United, we went on an absolute horrendous run of which we struggled, and we just got over the line. Last day of the season, we nearly threw it away. You know, you look at the Gary Monk season when we were on the cusp of the playoffs and we threw it away, didn't we? Last sort of 3 games, which was culminated in a dire last game of the season, or one of the last games against Burton Albion where we struggled. Then we've struggled in multiple seasons after that, but we've also struggled in the Premier League. 18-19 with Bielsa and Wilder quarters. We struggled last season. 3 wins in 11. But at this point of the season, I have to be honest, everybody, I can't ever remember seeing anything like this in my lifetime.
Agree with that. And I'm just going to pause in there for a second. And that's what I mean about Daniel Farke. I'm not saying Connor hasn't given him credit. But Leeds fans need to give him more credit, in my opinion. So all these examples where Leeds didn't do as well as what they're doing now at this precious stage of the season. Daniel Farke has managed to get them over the line, and so far has been getting them over the line in style, especially with that win at Stoke. But yeah, let's carry on.
I really can't. Leeds United have grown into the season. So you base everything, don't you, on just evidence. You base everything on, a lot of the time, historical context, maybe a bit of superstition. Sheffield United have blown 3 games. We will be doing a watch on for Sheffield United on this channel as well. You will be redirected to after this if you fancy coming along for us with us for that one. Sheffield United, 3 losses on the bounce. The only team in the top 6 with 3 losses on the form guide.
Not, is it?
And Leeds United in the last 4 have won 4 on the bounce. What
Sheffield United 4 defeats out of 5 now.
a response that is. Credit to Farke, credit to the boys. That was absolutely immense.
Yeah, we'll leave it there. But it's good to see Connor say credit to Farke, because and credit to the Leeds were superb on the pitch as well. Let's not take anything away from the players as well, by the way. But yeah, Leeds were superb. Leeds are in the Premier League. It's good to see Connor happy. It is genuinely good to see Connor happy. It's a shame Jimmy's not happy, but I'm sure he'll be happy again in 3-4 weeks. But yeah, Leeds in the Premier League. Farke has given his opinions and stuff, and sort of like said how good they were and how impressive they were and things like that. And obviously Connor's very, very happy as well. But yeah, Leeds United will play in the Premier League next season after a 6-0 demolition of Stoke City, and of course results later on went their way. You're welcome, by the way, Leeds fans. Right, let's move on to the big game of the weekend where the big boys were playing. It was Burnley at Turf Moor against Sheffield United. Burnley knew that a win against Sheffield United would see them 100% promoted into the Premier League next season, and it would have been confirmed. Leeds United would have known that a Burnley win or a Burnley draw would have seen Leeds in the Premier League next season. Sheffield United had to win to stand any chance whatsoever of staying in the top 2 promotion race. Unfortunately for them, they lost. But obviously, yeah, speaking from a Burnley perspective, absolutely over the moon with how everything went. Obviously, the result, I've said it already in my fan reaction and stuff, but I'll just say it again on here. I actually feel like Sheffield United started the better of the 2 teams. Gus Hamer, by the way, that's the best I've ever seen him play live, like in person. He was frustrating me so much because our midfield of Cullen, Brownhill and Hannibal played well. Obviously, Brownhill getting the 2 goals. Cullen's always superb. He makes Burnley tick, and he was superb in this game as well. And Hannibal was great. But somehow, Hamer's got this brilliant ability of just finding himself in acres and acres of space. And so many times he was in acres and acres and acres of space. He got the early yellow card, and I remember thinking that's going to keep him quiet. It didn't. Gus Hamer was superb. I thought he was the best player on the pitch. Actually, no, Maxime Esteve, superb. But in that midfield, Hamer, I was watching him. I'm thinking, this guy deserves to be in the Premier League next season. I know Leeds were interested in him when he was at Coventry. So Leeds may well go. I mean, Sheffield United. I'm shutting it down already before I even get there and get loads of grief off the Blades fans. But I'm obviously talking from a perspective like if they don't go up. But yeah, Leeds may go back in for him. I'd love to see him at Burnley, but I'm not sure he fits too much into sort of like a Parker system. But yeah, Gus Hamer was superb. Sheffield United, I thought, started the better. They had 2 very early shots, tame shots, admittedly, and Trafford made easy saves, but it showed an intent. But I did say that's how I expected the game to go. Me and Jimmy did a pre-game show. Connor came on that show. And we all said that Blades will start on the front foot. They'll come at Burnley. They'll try and get an early goal. That's the best time to score against Burnley, in my opinion. And then try and get ahead, maybe score a second, which, nobody's done in the league this season. But if they'd have got a second and then sat back, we would have struggled. But thankfully, they didn't get the early goal. It was Burnley that got the early goal. Probably against a run of play at that point, and then the game just sort of like evened out, I felt, from there. Sheffield United did obviously equalise through Tom Cannon. A decent finish, by the way, for somebody who's supposed to be rubbish. That's what Blades fans have been telling me. But a decent finish from him. But then obviously Burnley go up the other end just before half-time, get the penalty. Definite penalty, by the way. I've still not seen that Fleming one back yet. I know Jimmy and Connor both said it was a dive. But at the time, I was screaming for it. But that one on Hannibal, absolute penalty. I thought Vinny Souza was poor, if I'm being honest with you. Credit where it's due, like I have done for Gus. But I feel like Vinny Souza was poor. And, you know, we went into this with all the Blades fans, well, not all the Blades fans, deluded Jimmy, saying he's up there with the likes of Maxime Esteve and stuff. But yeah, I thought he was poor in this game, personally. And what I will say as well is, I don't know if Blades fans will agree with me. I'm not sure how many have migrated over from doing stuff with Jimmy and Connor. I do get a lot of Leeds fans watching the stuff, but I'm not sure many Blades fans do just yet. What I will say is I thought the team selection was very strange. Very strange. Dropping your best striker in Tyrese Campbell and starting Tom Cannon and Kiefer Moore, was it? Who was up front with him? It didn't make any sense to me. It just didn't make any sense to me. And obviously, Tyrese Campbell came on in the second half, looked livelier than Cannon. Definitely looked lively more, put it that way. But I thought Raksaki as well, when he came on, he looked lively. And I was worried about Raksaki. He's a good player, and I think he's going to have a good future in the game. He's Raksaki. He's a good player. But despite that, I thought the second half was quite open. For, you know, Blades counter-attacked us quite well, but just didn't have the quality to put the ball in the back of the net. And Burnley was similar. I thought we counter-attacked quite well as well. But Maxime Esteve, absolutely superb. He was fantastic. He's the best defender in the Championship. I don't care what anyone says. I know some people might say Pascal or, you know, Rodon or whatever, or, you know, but for me, it's Maxime Esteve. He's head and shoulders above anybody else in this league in defence, in my opinion. Absolutely superb. The amount of times when Blades were counter-attacking, and he's got the pace and he's got the nous. He just knows what he's doing. He just gets back, an absolute Rolls Royce of a defender. He is superb. But yeah, thankfully for me, apologies to any Blades fans watching, but like I said, I'm not sure many have come over from Jimmy's channel yet. Not sure why that is. It might be stuff that Jimmy's saying about me when I'm not there. But let's have a look at the facts and figures from the game then, shall we? Obviously, as I've said already, Brownhill putting Burnley ahead. Tom Cannon with the equaliser. Like I said already, good finish. And Josh Brownhill scoring just before half-time, before all these subs. But not much else happening in that second half, which I absolutely will take, by the way. Burnley just got our noses in front and said to Sheffield United, break us down. And obviously not many teams can break us down. So absolutely we'll take that. It might not have been the most entertaining game for the neutral, but there's probably a few Burnley games where you can say that this season. Let's have a look at the stats. Doesn't tell the full story. And this is where XG sometimes falls short. Burnley there have the higher XG, but you've got to remember we scored a goal from 2 yards out, so that's going to have an high XG, and we scored a penalty as well, so that's going to have a high XG. And they're the two big chances that we created, and that obviously the goal that Blade scored was the one big chance that they created as well. So, like I said, not the most entertaining game. Do I care right now? No, because we're in the Premier League. But yeah, 1.45 XG to Blades, 58 in favour of Burnley. Burnley actually had more of the ball. I'm surprised at that because the second half was, like I said, just a case of us saying to them, break us down. But we were, to be fair, messing around with it a lot at the back and trying to invite the press. So that'll obviously push that stat up. Blades had more shots, excuse me, but we had the same amounts of shots on target. We had the two big chances, which were the two goals, I would imagine, and they had the one. And not many passes from either team. Looking at that, look at that. Burnley attempted 365 passes, and Blades attempted 349. Just cast your mind back to what I was saying about Leeds earlier. I think that was 750 odd for Leeds. So yeah, like I said, not the most entertaining game for the neutral, and any Leeds fans in the chat who did watch it, because obviously you've been watching it with, you know, intense and things like that, because you'd have been, you know, buzzing and hoping that Burnley win, which we did. You're welcome, by the way. Yes, I know I've said that already, but I'll probably say it again. You're welcome, by the way. But yeah, not the most entertaining game. But when you come out on top and you strangle teams to death like we did in that second half to Blades, I personally do not care. Right, then let's have a look at what the managers had to say. Now, I don't normally bring Scott Parker in because obviously this is a Burnley channel and I do a lot of Burnley content already. And I post a lot of quotes and stuff from the manager that I know the Burnley fans are going to digest in that way. But with this one being such a huge game, I'm going to bring both managers in, and we are going to start with the man of the hour, Super Scotty Parker. There he is. Now, again, I have seen this one, obviously. We won't play it all. But let's see what the gaffer had to say. The main man, the promoted gaffer, had to say after Burnley secured promotion to the Premier League.
Well, Gaffer, congratulations. Just sum up what this means to you and what this means to the football club.
Yeah, I think it means everything for us, really. I think more so for everyone at the football club. So we set out on a mission this year, which was ultimately to get to this point, which we've done. There's been some bumps along that way, mate, and there's been there's a journey and a story to be told.
I mean, has there been that many bumps, Scott? There's not been that many bumps. We've been consistent. We've been the most. It's hard to say we've been the most consistent across the year when we're not top, but I'd argue that we have because we've lost the least games. I suppose Millwall away was a bump. There was a lot of noise surrounding the manager at that point. I said at the time it was ridiculous. I stand by that. I said it was ridiculous. Sunderland was a bit of a bump at the very start of the season. They're the only 2 games that we've lost. But other than that, there's a few 0-0s in there where people were getting a bit frustrated, myself included. So there's been some minimal bumps. There's been some ever so slight speed bumps in the road. But it's been a season of consistency, I'd argue.
And I'm just absolutely delighted for everyone, from ownership to staff, to the players, for their commitment and their sacrifice, really, over which has been a long season that we managed to get to celebrate tonight.
You've obviously done this a couple of times already, but the squad perhaps not, very, very young. You know, what makes this group of players so special?
Well, I think that's what makes I explained to the players. I think that's probably what makes it more emotional for me, really, because I see a group come together really, really quick. A group really mixed, really, some experience, some real young players, and some players that have probably never been in and around trying to get promoted out of this division. And the journey has been one which has been ups, downs, some lefts and rights, which we shouldn't have took, and we did take, or that adversity which we faced. But for every bit that we took, that there was always a commitment and a dedication to this group that were all eyes and ears, that followed the route of what I was trying to sell here, really. And I include the fans in that as well, and everyone involved in the football club. There was a consistent behaviour, which was a positive one, which helps me, of course. And like I said, this group's a special group, mate. And I said that to him yesterday in a meeting, really. A special group that gives me energy every day. It gives me the reason to wake up every day. A loyal group that makes me the person I am, really. So, and they absolutely deserve everything. When I look at them on the pitch, I see certain personnel, I see all of them. They absolutely deserve everything at this moment, really. And that's what makes me not just emotional, but speaking with pride, really.
Love that from Scott. He sounds emotional. I believe everything he says when he says sort of like this is sort of like comparing it to his other 2 promotions, sort of like it makes him more emotional. It looks like he does. Obviously, I didn't see his interviews and stuff when he got promoted with Fulham and Bournemouth, but I agree. It's a squad that came together at the last minute. I'm not one to sort of like bash the board or anything. I've always been, I've always backed the board despite a lot of noise and stuff surrounding certain things, which I do disagree with that they do. But the way that they handled the summer transfer window, I thought was poor and sold Scott short a little bit. Scott had come in, seen the team with the likes of Wilson Odebear, and Johan Berg Gudmundsson, Zeki Amdouni in it, and he'd thought, yes, we have a squad here. And then the board sell them all within the 3 days of the window ending, which was just bizarre to do it like that. And obviously, then we had to quickly sign a brand new team, and that's when the likes of Hannibal and Fleming and stuff were coming in. So yeah, I'm glad he kind of like referenced that and how it was a squad that came together at the last minute. And even some of the players that were already here, like CJ Egan-Riley, like he's gone on to prove that he should be here and he deserves a new contract and deserves to play in the Premier League next season. But he was never in company's thoughts. That says more about company than anything else. But he was always out on loan at lower league clubs or Scottish clubs, I think, as well. So even to have players like CJ coming into the squad and to the starting 11 who hadn't been yet before this season, just shows sort of like how not threadbare we were, but sort of like how it was thrown together at the last minute. Obviously, CJ ended up proving that he's fantastic, and it was a gem that we didn't know we had. But yeah, absolutely super. That's the main. And again, as I've said for Daniel Farke, Scott Parker deserves a lot of credit as well. There's some Burnley fans, especially, that have been over the course of the season, and credit to some of them. And like I said a couple of times on a couple of videos already. Now, I'm not referencing anybody individually or any pages individually. But credit to a lot of the people in my comments, sort of like saying, yeah, I was a Parker critic. I wanted him out after that Millwall defeat. He's proven me wrong. So, hats off to the people that are big enough to be able to say that. But he deserves a lot of credit now. And I'm glad he's getting it. I'm glad he's getting it. Yes, it might not be pretty. People might just throw the boring Burnley jibe around all the time. But as I've said several times, and I'll just quickly remind you all, Burnley have scored more goals than Sheffield United. They've scored more goals than Sunderland. They've scored more goals than Bristol City. We've scored 1 goal less than Coventry, 3 goals less than Middlesbrough. And I think the only other team in the league that have scored more goals than us is Norwich. So we can't be that boring if, we're outscoring all these teams, especially Sunderland, who people tell me they're a joy to watch, or they were a joy to watch before the recent drop in form. Apparently, Frank Lampard's got Coventry playing wonderful stuff. Scott Parker's just been to Coventry and won 2-1, and they've scored 1 more goal than us. So it can't be that boring. And again, I just think it's a jibe that people say when they're jealous and they want to not ridicule, but sort of people like to bring other people down, and they see Burnley fans happy. I'm sure Leeds fans would have had it recently as well. And it's infuriating. We hadn't even been in the Premier League for 24 hours until TalkSport and other channels and papers were discussing how Burnley Leeds are going down next season. It's like you put a picture up saying we are Premier League, and the first comment underneath it is a Blackburn fan or a Sheffield United fan or some top 6 fan living in Botswana saying, oh, well, you're going to get relegated next season. It's like, just can you not let us be happy for 24 hours? It's just mind-boggling. And again, I think that boring Burnley thing stems from that. I agree it's not the prettiest to watch, but there's a beauty in football that different teams have different styles. If everybody just played the same way as Man City, which a lot of teams do now, it gets boring. And you see the likes of Goldbridge and all these other big creators constantly criticising the Premier League for being boring. This is why, because everybody plays in the same way. Everybody's trying to recreate this Pep Guardiola style, and it's just boring football. It's just pass. Now, I understand that Burnley's isn't free-flowing attacking football, and I feel like I can say it after watching a Sean Dyche side for 9 years and the Vincent Kompany side for 2 years and now a Scott Parker side. They all play different ways, especially the Vincent Kompany one. You could sort of argue the similarities in the Dyche and the Parker style. The Vincent Kompany one is obviously the entire opposite. It's better to watch a team free-flowing going forward when you're winning. 100% get that. But Vincent Kompany's style didn't translate to the Premier League. I think Scott Parker's will. Will we stay up? That's for another video. And I don't want to get into that because, like I've said already, there's mainstream media already criticising Burnley and Leeds, saying, well, what's the point in even being happy? Essentially saying that because you're going to get relegated, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. Let us celebrate. Let us get home from the turf, from Ellen Road, us and saying you're definitely going to get relegated. But anyway, enough of that. I digress a little bit there. Apologies. The weekend review isn't normally for them sort of rants, if you will. This is normally for just sort of like looking back at the game. So let's get back on track, shall we? And let's have a look at what Chris Wilder had to say after Sheffield United's defeat against Burnley.
At Amazon, discover electrifying offers. Find thousands of great daily deals on Amazon.
Things are about to get real.
So, Chris, it's the playoffs. Sum up your emotions right now.
Yeah, do you know what? I've just thought about that in terms of speaking to the players. I want us to get into 90 points, the 90 points total. For 2 teams, congratulations to Daniel and Scott and their 2 teams. For those 2 teams to hit 100 points, or have the ability to get 100 points, just shows you what the division's like.
Fair play to Wilder. He gets a lot of stick. And I know I've said it on this show before and on Jimmy's channel. I do like him. I feel like he creates a rod for his own back at times, celebrating the way he did. And against Sheffield Wednesday, but you kind of understand it because he's a Sheffield United fan, and obviously it's a rivalry like Burnley Blackburn is. So as a fan of Burnley, I can completely relate. But I feel like as a manager, you've got a certain level of professionalism that you should adhere to, which I feel like sometimes he lets himself down with. But I like Chris Wilder because he wears his heart on his sleeve. Yes, I might sometimes jokingly call him a ham sandwich or something like that, but it's all fun and games. But I like him because he wears his heart on his sleeve, and respect to him for that. Most managers, some managers would have just skipped past that bit and not said congratulations to Leeds and Burnley. So credit to Chris for that.
And we finished up the third best team in the division. The game, the season went to the 40.
Can I just point out, by the way, I've not watched this one before. I love it how you can still hear the Burnley fans celebrating in the background and the announcer on the microphone. Love that.
Fourth game of the season. I thought we had a right go tonight. We created some good chances. The goals have killed us. We've conceded 2 poor goals. We have to do better on the clearance, and obviously the penalty hands the initiative back into them. But we always looked like we could score. Just needed to make better decisions in and around the box. And
what I will jump in and disagree with, where he says, "I always felt like we would score." In the first half, I'd agree with that. Second half, I always felt comfortable. I was nervous, don't get me wrong, just because the ball can bounce anywhere, it can go anywhere. Somebody can just put something in the top bins out of nowhere. But I never really felt in danger of conceding in that second half. I thought, like I said earlier, we just sort of like sat back and said, try and break us down. And Blades never really looked in any danger of doing that, in my opinion.
Show a little bit more quality. But this team got put together. I was just talking to him there. Team got put together in the summer. Everybody knows what happened last year. I remember going to Huddersfield a week before the start of the season, and basically it was an under-21 team with a few players added in. So we've had to learn on the job. The season didn't end here, as I said. It ended when we didn't put, the current form Oxford to bed. You can lose a game in the Championship and you can't go and get beat at Plymouth, even though Coventry have got beat and Middlesbrough should have drawn last week. But those were the games that really have cost us. We would have still have had to get, as you know, we would have still have had to get 90, 95, 96, 97 points to go up. It's an insane season. Our younger players will learn from it. There's players playing at the top end of the Championship that will learn from it for the first time. The Harrisons and Coopers and Femis and City Peck, Jerseys and all those. We've fallen a little bit short. We've been the third best team in the division. People have their opinion on it. I think from where we were on that night at Huddersfield to taking it to 44 games, I think there'd have been a small percentage of our supporters would think that we would get into 90 points.
We'll leave it there because obviously I think he's going on a little bit, and we had just hit 2 minutes on that video. But I can't comment on the Sheffield United situation. It does sound like I know Sheffield were awful. Sheffield United, apologies, were awful last season, as we were as well. Sheffield United were a bit worse, admittedly. But I feel like Leeds and Burnley were also in a similar position where they had to throw a squad together in the summer. So Leeds lost key players, Burnley lost key players. It sounds like Sheffield United, just going off what Wilder said without any research into it, it does sound like they lost maybe more key players, as well as having obviously a worse season last season. But I'm not going to sit here and say it's excuses from Chris, because I don't think it is. I think he was quite well spoken in that interview, articulate, and sort of put his points across quite well. He's right. They have just fallen short. They have been the third best team in the division this season, which ultimately doesn't get them in to the Premier League next season. But I'm sure they'll still get there. I'm sure they'll still get there. But anyway, as we always do on this channel, as we did earlier with Connor, let's have a look at what Jimmy from the Blades Ramble had to say after his side were condemned to the playoffs after Burnley managed to get the win over them at Turf Moor on Easter Monday. I've just paused it here. I shouldn't laugh, and I apologise, but how miserable does he look? I've just watched the first 5 seconds of the video, and he isn't that miserable, to be fair. But look at the guy behind Jimmy. He looks fuming, absolutely fuming. But fair play to Jimmy for jumping straight on a stream. He invited me on this stream as well, to be fair, but obviously he does it straight after full time. I've stayed behind at Turf Moor to watch them sort of like celebrate with my little boy and my dad, celebrate with the rest of the fans. And then I came home and had a couple of beers, and by the time I was ready, Jimmy had finished his stream. But credit to Jimmy for going straight on a stream afterwards. I always remember when we got relegated against Newcastle 3 years ago. Leeds fans will remember that very well because it was your fault beating Brentford at Brentford, which ultimately relegated us. But I don't think I even did a podcast. I think I just completely ignored it. So credit to Jimmy. But let's hear what he had to say after the Blades blew it.
What is happening, Blades? And welcome back to the Blades Ramble. I am, of course, Jimmy. I'm joined by Paul, the Man Mountain, and Dave, the Nose Leary. Hope you're all okay. This is 90 after 90. Sheffield United have lost at Turf Moor, meaning that Leeds United and Burnley are promoted to the Premier League, and it is the playoffs for the Blades. Congratulations to Leeds and Burnley. It has to be said, the two best teams in the league, which is obviously evidence now, but
you weren't saying that 6 weeks ago, Jimmy, were you? Fair play. I'll give him credit as well. I gave Wilder credit, but he refused to say that 3 weeks ago. Never mind 6 weeks ago. He's saying it now because he has to. But thank you for the congratulations, Jimmy. At least
2 games to go. They're promoted. Fair play. Can't say any other. We've had banter with other channels and other fan bases throughout the season. You have to take it on the chin when it don't go your way, and we've always said we will do that. That means I'm wearing a Leeds shirt before the end of the season. Oh, it means
that will be funny. And Connor, if you're watching this, I'll definitely WhatsApp him afterwards. I want to be on that stream, please. I want to be on that stream where Jimmy has to wear a Leeds shirt. But can I just say, I know he's done it because at the time he was confident, and he's going to get subscribers out of it. So I'm sure that's not all he's bothered about, but it's a happy thing to get out of it. There is no way in hell I would ever, and this isn't anything against Leeds, like any other English team. I would never, ever wear any other English professional team shirts. Probably wear a Padiham shirt or a Colne shirt or a Nelson shirt, something, probably Padiham. But yeah, it's going to be tough that for you, Jimmy. It really, really is. Really, really is. I don't know why you've done that, mate.
Playoffs for Sheffield United, a competition that we've never won in our history. What does it mean for Sheffield United? Is it promotion or bust now for Chris Wilder in terms of his future with the football club? There's so many. Now we know our fate. Do we rest players?
Yeah.
Do we manage minutes? Which I think is obvious that we manage minutes, but how far do you go with that? Do we see Sidney Peck again now until the playoffs? Do we see Gus Hamer now until the playoffs? I think we personally should, because I think you've got to get into a bit of a rhythm with how you play, but I've got my boys here as well to tell me what they think. Paul, how did you see that game today, pal?
I just think we're very competitive.
Right, the audio's awful there for Jimmy's mate Paul, so we will leave it there. Credit to Jimmy, like I said, for coming on. Credit to Jimmy for saying congratulations. But yeah, just going back to his points there about rest players or what, I would personally be resting players. What I'd do if I was Sheffield United, I'd rest Sidney Peck, I'd rest Gus Hamer, I'd rest Vinny Souza. Tyrese Campbell got a rest at the turf, so I'd start him. But in the next game, I'd rest a few players, just let them. I'd even given them time off now. I'd say to sort of like the main players, right, you can have a week off, go away, reset, maybe go away with the family if you want to go somewhere, just reset and come back next Monday. That's what I'd be doing. And then get them back into training, get them back into a rhythm, play your strongest side the last day of the season, try and get like a big statement win there. I don't know who they're playing, but try and get a big statement win in your last game of the season. But yeah, it's a shame for Blades. I do think they win it. If Wilder doesn't win it, he just said there, is it promotion or bust? I think it'd be silly, personally. Blades fans, if you are watching, let me know in the comments what you think below. I think it's silly. I think what the worst thing that Sheffield United can do now is have another summer of rebuild. You've done very well to be the third best team in the league, as Wilder said, if what happened in the summer is entirely true and is not exaggerated it slightly, you've done very well to be the third best team in the league. You need to build on that. You don't want to just knock the house down and then start again. Keep Wilder. Try your best to keep hold of Cooper and Gus and Sidney Peck and Sousa. I think Sousa will probably, well, again, that's for a different stream. That's not for me to talk about that. That's, I'm sure Jimmy will touch on stuff like that on his channel over the summer. But I think it'd be silly to get rid of Chris Wilder now, personally, if you don't go up in the playoffs, should I say. And I feel like consistency is key. I think Blades can have a very good season next season if they keep hold of Chris Wilder and they keep hold of a lot of their players. I know there's some teams coming down from the Premier League that, you know, might have a say in how you know, in the promotion race, and there's even teams coming up from the Championship as well, from League One, in Birmingham City, who've got a lot of money, who will put a promotion run together. Whether they make it or just fall short is another debate. Wrexham, if they come up, they're a team that's on an upward trajectory. Stockport County, if they come up, they're a team that's on another upward trajectory. So I'm not saying it's going to be easy for Blades if they don't go up through the playoffs, but I feel like it would be silly to get rid of Wilder and then to have another rebuild. But it might not be something that you have to worry about. It might not be something that Blades fans have to worry about. And fingers crossed for you guys it is. And as I've said already, I do think Blades go up in the playoffs. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. We don't even know who they're playing yet. Let's before we all start saying they'll definitely go up and stuff, let's work out who they're playing. But I look at Bristol City, I look at Coventry, I look at Middlesbrough, I look at Millwall, and I look at I'm not going to say their name. Them locked down the M65. I don't think they'll get in the playoffs. And Blades are better than all of them. They really are. Over the course of 2 legs, I feel like Blades will be in the final. The problem is the final is a one-off game. Anything can happen. Gus could pick up an injury. Sousa could put another silly challenge in like he did at the Turf. It depends on who they're playing, obviously. Enzo Lefebvre could ping it into the top bins from 30, 35 yards. So anything can happen in the final. But over the course of 2 legs, I think Blades will be in the playoff final. But yeah, that's it for this episode of the Weekend Review. We will be back next week. But next week, we will just be looking at how Leeds United and Burnley got on, because we will now be focusing on who goes on to win the league title. And again, I know there's a lot of Leeds fans that watch this, but allow me some bias, please. Fingers crossed it's the Clarets. But I won't lose any sleep if Leeds lose it. But thanks everybody for watching. Thanks everyone for listening. If you're listening on the podcast as well, if you want to watch this as a podcast, you can do. Just search Turfcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Is that still a thing anymore? I don't even know. But whatever your podcast provider is, just search Turfcast on there and you will find us. If you haven't already and you got to the end of the video, show me some love by hitting the like button, and show me even more love if you're not subscribed by subscribing. Cheers.